Before starting this video, I do want to give a thank you to my patrons that support the channel. And if you would like to support the channel, there are some great benefits for you in the link down below. So with that, let's get into today's video. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on Pub Stomp MTG. So this video, I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a set review for Jurassic World for the new Lost Caverns of Ixalan set. So of course it's a Universes Beyond product, and I want to say there's roughly around like 20 cards or so. So in this video, I'm going to talk about each one of them, talking about the flavor of them, also talking about the mechanics of them, and overall design of them, because I feel like with this one, it's kind of a special set for me because I love Jurassic World and Jurassic Park so much. So I decided to do a set review just for this specific set. I feel like if I did like a set review after every single set, it would be a long process because there's so many cards to discuss. But with this one, it's kind of like a mini set within a set. So I decided, hey, let's just focus on Jurassic World cards in this video. So let's get right into it. So I do want to start out with the basic lands. So we do have the plains, island, swamp, mountain, and forest. I do love these depictions of different scenes from different movies. For example, I love the plains, having that first view of the dinosaurs looking so peaceful in the valley. I know technically in the first movie the Velociraptor was first seen technically, but of course, with this is the first grand image of the dinosaurs. Of course, there are some other images like the Mosasaurus eating the great white shark, also the Spinosaurus following the boat, and on top of that with the Gallimimus just running along in that valley. And also we do have the forest that shows the raptor cage with the human. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that because I want dinosaurs in my images. But I will say what's very neat about these cards is the fact that you can flip them over into different art. And personally, I like these a lot better, maybe besides the plains, because that just looks absolutely sad. But seriously, aside from that, these depictions are absolutely breathtaking. I love the island. Just having that Mosasaurus come closer to that submarine looks insane. Plus, I did love that scene of the Spinosaurus coming out of the water in Jurassic Park 3. And I'll say, based off of the art with the swamp, that did justice to that scene alone. But I will say, out of all of them, the mountain is probably my favorite, mainly because, of course, the volcano is exploding with a T-Rex roaring. I mean, come on, that just looks absolutely badass. And I will say the forest looks a lot better on the backside, having the Velociraptor at nighttime. But these are actually not the only lands in the set. We do also have Command Tower. If you're playing a commander game, obviously you're going to have Command Tower in your deck unless you're playing a monocolored deck. But what I do like about these lands, including the basic lands, is that shows more of a peaceful side on the front side. For example, with Command Tower, it shows all the guests and what John Hammond truly envisioned what Jurassic Park would be. And on the backside, for example, with Command Tower, it shows nature taking over. But that really could be mentioned with any of the basic lands. That shows more of a peaceful side on front and then chaos ensuing on the backside. So aside from the lands, there are also some pretty interesting and unique cards as well. The first one I want to mention is Permission Denied. And of course the flavor text says it all. But before even reading the card, I just have to say we finally have Samuel L. Jackson on a Magic the Gathering card. Aside from that, this is a very good Magic card. For white and a blue, it's an instant speed spell, counter target non-creature spell. Your opponents can't cast non-creature spells this turn. So not only is this a memeable card, this is also very good, especially when your opponents are playing a lot of non-creature spells. So overall, the flavor is absolutely outstanding. However, let's discuss some more non-creature spells. So for example, Dino DNA, I just had to say it like that. Also, Don't Move and Life Finds a Way. So as far as everything goes with Dino DNA, just for 1 mana, it has that ability to imprint, to tap it and pay 1, to exile target creature card from a graveyard, activate only as a sorcery. Then you can pay 6 mana to create a token that's a copy of a target creature exiled with Dino DNA, accepted as a 6/6 green dinosaur creature token with trample, activate only as sorcery. So essentially you're making a Colossal Dreadmaw with some extra stats. So yeah, this is obviously a flavorful card. You just dig into the graveyard so that you can exile specific cards so that you can make a clone of it, except it's a dinosaur. So this can be pretty powerful in some situations, having that imprint ability to exile a creature card from a graveyard, so it's any kind of graveyard, even from your opponent. So this is a very good card and quite flavorful too. I did also want to point out Don't Move. So for 3 and 2 white, destroy all tapped creatures until your next turn. Whenever a creature becomes tapped, destroy it. So obviously this is in reference to the part of the movie where the T-Rex breaks out. And for me personally, this is a pretty flavorful card too. I will say that about a lot of these cards, by the way. They're very flavorful at what they do. So obviously with tapped creatures, when you're thinking about it in terms of movement, they are attacking other creatures, and when you're attacking, you're moving. And the T-Rex will kill anything in its sight that's moving. So aside from that, a very fun ability for sure. And up next, I did want to talk about Life Finds a Way. So for 2 and a green, whenever a non-token creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you populate. In my opinion, I don't find this as flavorful as other cards. I mean, I get it. I understand that life is finding a way as you're populating basically the island with dinosaurs. So overall, I feel like this is an interesting design that could go in many different token strategies for sure. We do also have some other non-creature spells to discuss, like Savage Order and Welcome to ... Jurassic Park. So let's first discuss Savage Order. So for 2 and 2 green, it's basically a natural order, but for dinosaurs. As an additional cost to cast this spell, you sacrifice a creature with power 4 or greater, and you search your library for a dinosaur creature card and put it directly onto the battlefield, and it gains indestructible until your next turn. So first of all, this is a direct reference of Jurassic Park 3, where the Spinosaurus basically killed a young T-Rex in the movie. And I won't get into it too much, but I was traumatized as a kid because T-Rex was one of my favorite dinosaurs, and seeing it get taken down by the Spinosaurus made me cry in the theater. So yeah, there's that. Aside from that, Savage Order will be a staple for dinosaurs to come for sure, because there's a lot of big dinosaurs that you can sacrifice because of power 4 or greater and put an even better dinosaur on the battlefield. So again, this is an absolute staple in any dinosaur deck to come. I do also think Welcome to ... Jurassic Park is also going to be a great include in many dinosaur decks to come. Essentially a very flavorful story. It basically summarizes what happens to Jurassic Park in the form of the lore chapters. You make a wall with other people's resources, then you make a 3/3 dinosaur on the battlefield, then you destroy all walls because dinosaurs escape. Plus, having a Gaia's Cradle in the backside with Jurassic Park is pretty incredible too, and having that escape for dinosaurs is icing on the cake. I will say this is probably one of my more favorite cards of the set because it encapsulates what happens in the first Jurassic Park movie, and it's just, I just love it so much. It's so great to see. But we do have some legendary humans I do want to discuss with you. So for example, I do have Ellie and Alan, Paleontologist, Ian Malcolm, Chaotician, and Henry Wu, InGen Geneticist. I will say out of all the series of Jurassic Park and also Jurassic World, Dr. Alan Grant was probably my favorite character out of the rest of them. I know a lot of people are Ian Malcolm fans, which don't get me wrong, I do think Ian Malcolm is an incredible character, but just something about Alan made me really discover my true love for dinosaurs. But aside from that, Ellie and Alan, Paleontologist, does have that ability to essentially dig through your graveyard so that you can discover X, where X is the mana value of the exiled card that you just exiled. I do also like the fact that they're using the discover mechanic, because obviously you're discovering new and different dinosaurs each day as you're in paleontology. I will say there is one downside, is the fact that this is pretty limited to a tap ability and also at sorcery speed. Overall, I do think it's a fun commander. I wish there was a little bit more with Alan, but hopefully in a secret lair we could get a better version of him, at least in my opinion. And of course with Ian Malcolm, Chaotician, he is in Izzet colors, which absolutely makes sense because of the red with all the chaos that happens with red, and also blue with being sound mind but being very chaotic at the same time. Ian Malcolm absolutely encapsulates that. I will say he is a pretty chaotic card, which justifies his name as the Chaotician, and having those sets of abilities where anybody could be playing any exiled card that was exiled with Ian Malcolm is chef's kiss. So yeah, Ian Malcolm is a pretty interesting card, but I do find Henry Wu the better out of these three as far as the human characters go. Henry Wu and other humans you control have exploit, and whenever a creature you control exploits a non-human creature, you draw a card. If the exploited creature has power 3 or greater, you create a treasure token. So of course, the first point I do want to mention is the fact that Henry Wu is exploiting the creatures as far as personal gain. At least that's how they basically built him up in the Jurassic World franchise. This does have card draw and temporary ramp with treasures, so this just has to be very good in very specific situations. You don't even need to go specifically humans. You could use cards that have exploit like zombies from Innistrad. Plus then you could exploit those zombies with humans, for example. So Henry Wu could be a very good zombie leader in my opinion, at least. Even though ironically in the movies he's exploiting dinosaurs and not zombies. So I mean, aside from that, he's a very good card, gives you card draw and also creates treasure tokens based off of what you exploit. So again, as far as commander goes, I do think Henry Wu is probably the best out of the bunch, at least in this part of the section of the video. But of course, what makes Jurassic Park the most compelling telling for me is the dinosaurs. So we do have cards like Hunting Velociraptor, Compy Swarm, and also Spitting Dilophosaurus. But I will say Hunting Velociraptor is literally quite insane when you think about it. So for 2 and a red, it has First Strike, and dinosaur spells you cast have Prowl 2 and a red. So basically, if you deal combat damage to a player, all your dinosaurs from your hand or from the command zone just cost 2 and a red. So think of all the dinosaurs that you might have in your hand or in the command zone, like a Gishath or a Galta, you name it. This is absolutely insane just for 3 mana. Also, I do have to say, this is actually quite flavorful when you think about it. Velociraptors, they do hunt in packs. One will draw your attention until another comes from the side to attack you. In the same flavorful way, your opponents are going to have the attention of the hunting Velociraptor, but when it swings in and deals combat damage to one of your opponents, they're going to be surprised by the big Gishath they do put on the battlefield. So again, a very cool card, and one that I'm going to have multiple copies of for sure. Speaking of which, Compy Swarm is going to be quite insane in a lot of different decks, especially in aristocrat strategies. So for 1 black and a green, at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, create a tap token that's a copy of Compy Swarm. So this essentially kind of reads like Scoot Swarm, except it's not a landfall trigger, it's a dice trigger, and it only happens once basically during your turn. But many people, including this fellow that had the tasering all the different compies in the second Jurassic Park movie, really didn't realize how out of hand compies can get. But in all honesty, this could get out of hand quite quickly, mainly because if you have a Compy Swarm on the battlefield and another creature dies during your turn, you're going to make another copy of Compy Swarm having 2 copies on the battlefield. And if you repeat that pattern, you're going to have 4, then 8, then 16, then 32, so on and so forth. So yeah, your opponents are going to want to make sure they remove this one quickly off the battlefield. Also with the Spitting Dilophosaurus, this is another card that your opponents may want to remove quickly because it has that ability for 2 and a black. Whenever it enters a battlefield or attacks, you put a -1/-1 counter on up to 1 target creature. Also, creatures your opponents control with -1/-1 counters on them can't block. So basically, this is just screaming flavor out of the card. This is a very scary scene, at least in my opinion. I was kind of scared of Dilophosauruses because at first it looked kind of harmless because when it was following Dennis around, it just kind of was making cute noises. But as time progressed, it basically killed Dennis in the cart, and that was actually kind of terrifying for me as a kid. The Dilophosaurus, at least in this universe, spits venom into people's eyes. At least that's what happened with Dennis. And in this card specifically, it's doing it in a form of -1/-1 counters, and obviously they're incapacitated after that point. They can't block anymore. So this is a very fitting and flavorful card too. Aside from that, one of my favorite dinosaurs from the movie was of course the T-Rex. And I feel like many others would agree that T-Rex was their favorite as well. So with the ravenous Tyrannosaurus, they have that beautiful art where the T-Rex is standing triumphant against those Velociraptors, and it does have a mana cost of 4 red and a green. She does have Devour 3, and whenever she does attack, it deals damage equal to its power to up to 1 other target creature. Excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. So let's point out the elephant in the room. I think I pointed this out in another video, but why wasn't this Legendary Wizards? I mean, if there was one card I wanted to be a legendary creature from this set, it was going to be the Tyrannosaurus. And the main reason why I do point that out is the fact that this was in 4 of the 6 movies with Jurassic Park 1, also in 4, 5, and 6 with Jurassic World. So for me personally, this was kind of deserving as a legendary creature, but aside from that rant, this is actually a very powerful and scary card to play against. Of course, with Devour 3, the more creatures you do sacrifice to the ravenous Tyrannosaurus when it enters the battlefield, the bigger it will become. Let's just say, hypothetically, you have 5 creatures on the battlefield like mana dorks, like Llanowar Elves, Elvish Mystic, for example, and then you sacrifice all those to Ravenous Tyrannosaurus. Ravenous Tyrannosaurus will enter the battlefield with 15 +1/+1 counters on it, making it a 21/21. So yeah, that could be extremely deadly in the right type of situation, especially if you're swinging away with it. You're going to deal 21 damage to a target creature, and excess damage will be dealt. So even though it's not legendary, I will say it's one of my favorite cards. I'm definitely going to be adding it into my Xenagos God of Revels deck for sure. So of course, those were cards that I pointed out from the original trilogy. However, we do have new cards from the newer trilogy as well. So for example, we do have the Grim Giganotosaurus, also Swooping Pteranodon, and also Cresting Mosasaurus. So I will first discuss the Grim Giganotosaurus or Giganotosaurus. There's multiple ways of pronouncing it, but for 5 green and a black. It does have monstrosity 10 by paying 10 black and a green. Also, the more creatures your opponents control that have power 4 or greater, this will be 1 less to activate per creature. But when the Grim Giganotosaurus becomes monstrous, you destroy all artifacts and all creatures other than Grim Giganotosaurus. So basically, if you turn it monstrous, you're going to be destroying all artifacts and all creatures on the battlefield, and you're going to be left with a 20/20 to swing in. So yeah, this is a very cool and very interesting card. I will say this is decently flavorful. I know for the 3rd Jurassic World movie, this was basically the apex predator of that little area that they were in. And of course, what do apex predators do? They basically stay the apex predator, so they destroy all creatures and all artifacts so that they can stay onto the top. So the Grim Giganotosaurus is a pretty cool and interesting card that I do plan on putting in my Indoraptor deck. Aside from that, let's move on to Swooping Pteranodon. So for 3 red and a white, it does have flying and haste as a 3/3 body. Whenever it or another dinosaur with flying enters the battlefield under your control, you gain control of target creature and opponent controls until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains flying and haste until end of turn. At the beginning of the next end step, target land deals 3 damage to that creature. So of course with the 4th movie, they had that scene where basically chaos was ensuing, where the Pteranodons did escape and they were picking up humans left and right to eat. This card kind of personifies basically what happened in there, because it's going to be gaining control of their target creature and opponent controls, and it kind of turns on them. I will say the only thing I could change on this card is the fact that we don't have the Margarita Man. You know what I'm talking about, the guy that was double fisting 2 margaritas. If you don't know what I'm talking about, watch the Jurassic World movie, specifically this scene, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It honestly made me chuckle a lot in the movie theater. I honestly don't even think it was intentional, but I aspire to be that man. But let's move on. Let's now talk about the Cresting Mosasaurus. So for 6 and 2 blue, it does have a merge cost of 6 and a blue. When it does enter the battlefield, if you cast it, you return each non-dinosaur creature to its owner's hand. So basically when you do cast this is basically like a whelming wave just for your dinosaurs. But as far as flavor goes, I don't really think it's super flavorful. I mean, first of all, the Mosasaurus was a lizard, but I mean, I guess they're going by definition standard. I mean, technically a Pteranodon wasn't even a dinosaur either, but this is Jurassic World, so of course they're going to be calling it dinosaurs specifically. But it does emerge out of the water multiple times to eat a bunch of dinosaurs or sharks, so as far as emerge goes, that is pretty flavorful there. But let's move on to some dinosaurs that are commanders. So for example, we do have the Indominus Rex Alpha and also the Indoraptor, the perfect hybrid. So before getting into this, I know a lot of people weren't the biggest fans of hybrids. For me personally, I absolutely enjoyed it, because for me, I was always thinking about as a kid, what would it look like to be a T-Rex and also a Triceratops mixed into one, for example. But with these are very interesting. The Indominus Rex Alpha was probably the strongest dinosaur out of the whole entire Jurassic Park franchise, and that's not even by a mile. But as far as flavor goes with the Indominus Rex, I do feel like it's very flavorful, because you're taking the best parts out of different creatures you do discard so that you could put it onto the Indominus Rex by putting different counters on it. Also, they did have the benefit of it when it enters the battlefield, you draw a card for each counter on it. So yeah, this could be pretty deadly in a lot of different situations, because you're drawing cards with it, also you're discarding cards, so you could go into a Reanimator theme with the Indominus Rex. So yeah, you're basically building the perfect dinosaur, putting a bunch of different keywords on it with the Indominus Rex, so this is a very cool and interesting commander to build around. But we do have the predecessor of the Indominus Rex with the Indoraptor, the perfect hybrid. So this is basically a Jund commander, which has the same kind of text as the Indominus Rex as a dinosaur mutant. It also does have Bloodthirst X and also Menace. It also has the other ability of Enrage. Whenever Indoraptor, the perfect hybrid, is dealt damage, choose an opponent at random. Indoraptor deals damage equal to its power to that player unless they sacrifice a non-token creature. So as far as the flavor scale goes, I don't think it's quite there. I mean, the Indoraptor is all about specifically going towards a specific target with a laser pointer, and having that Enrage ability dealing damage to a random player isn't quite there. But I will say the Indoraptor was pretty bloodthirsty in the movie, so that bloodthirst mechanic is pretty flavorful on that aspect. So the more damage you deal to your opponents, the bigger the Indoraptor will become when it enters the battlefield. So as far as everything goes, I do feel like the Indoraptor is probably better than the Indominus Rex, at least in my opinion. I mean, let me know down below in the comments which one do you think is better. Aside from that, the last commander pairing I do want to mention is Blue Loyal Raptor and also Owen Grady Raptor Trainer. So together they are a team or commander because they do have partner with each other. So basically these work hand in hand with each other. Owen Grady has that ability of putting counters on Blue, and then Blue later on, when you put other dinosaurs on the battlefield, they will gain those traits off of Blue. So of course this is pretty flavorful overall because Owen is teaching Blue all these different abilities and also teaching different dinosaurs at the same time. But you mainly want to train Blue so that all the dinosaurs that enter the battlefield will have those same abilities as Blue. I will also say I've always wanted to see a Teamer Dinosaur Commander, specifically dinosaurs. I know technically Calamax is a dinosaur as Teamer colors, but I wanted to focus on dinosaurs, and Owen and Blue will get the job done for me. So this is one partner combination I'm definitely going to be planning on making myself. And that is it. That is all the Jurassic World cards that are coming to Magic the Gathering, at least in this set specifically. I know there is Secret Lair cards coming out pretty soon, so that's why I wanted to do a set review with these cards specifically, because there's a lot of fun and flavorful cards that I plan on collecting. But let me know down below in the comments which card are you most excited for from this Jurassic World set. I'm definitely excited about the Ravenous Tyrannosaurus and also Owen Grady and Blue as partners together. So with all that said, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stopping by.